Hi everybody, Miss Rachel at Farmingdale Public Library here, and today I'm going to show you how to paint a jack-o'-lantern face on your pumpkin, kind of like what I did here. For this activity, you will need a clean pumpkin, you will need some acrylic paint, whatever colors you'd like, and you'll need a paintbrush. You'll also need a cup of water to dip your brush into when you are in between colors. You ready to get started? Let's decorate our pumpkin. All right, everybody. Well, the first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that your pumpkin is nice and clean and nice and dry. You can do this by either washing your pumpkin with a little bit of soap and water on a rag or a washcloth, or even with a small amount of bleach. If you have some non-toxic bleach at home, you can use that, and that'll help keep your pumpkin from rotting a little bit faster. Okay, so the most important thing you need to know about making a pumpkin decoration face with paint is that we're going to start with the lightest colors first and then go over them with our darker colors. So to make my jack-o'-lantern eyes, I'm going to paint two triangles that are the same size on my pumpkin, and you want them to be the same height and the same width, and try to get an even coating of paint between the two so that this way they'll look like eyes and not like you're a pirate wearing an eye patch, unless of course you want a pirate pumpkin. Okay, so here we go. And it's okay if your paint is a little bit uneven and raggedy because, well, jack-o'-lanterns are a little bit crooked and raggedy, aren't they? Okay, so here's my first triangle. And I'm also going to try and make it equidistant from the stem, this part of the pumpkin here that looks kind of like a handle, so that this way the stem is still in the center of my pumpkin. Okay, and here we go. I'm going to take my paint and make my triangle. Oh, now if you find that you've made one triangle bigger than the other, it is much easier to add onto the smaller triangle than it is to take away from the bigger triangle. So that's what I'm going to do over here. So I'm going to add a little bit more to the bottom here to make this one just a little bit taller. Okay, and when you're satisfied with how they look and how much paint there is in those glowing eyes, those glowing yellow eyes, we can go on to our mouth. I'm going to also do my mouth in yellow today, but you could do it in any colors that you'd like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a zigzag, kind of like a letter W that's been stretched out, or a bunch of letter M's. And since I'm making a happy jack-o'-lantern today, I'm going to have mine end with both of the sides ending with a point going up. You could end it going down and a frown if you want, or have an angry jack-o'-lantern, but I want a happy one today. And again, try to make it as even as you can with the stem. So I'm going to add a little more onto this side here. Okay, so there's my zigzag. And of course, if it's not perfectly even, that's okay. And I'm going to make my mouth a little bit wider by going over it one more time with my paint. And you see, I like painting pumpkins much more than carving pumpkins. I think a painted pumpkin is so much nicer because it's more colorful, and because you haven't cut into it, it'll last a lot longer, which I always am sad when a pumpkin rots away or a squirrel steals it and eats it. That's happened a couple of times to me. Okay, there we go. So now I have my nice thick mouth, my triangle eyes, and I think I'm going to give mine just a little tiny dot for a nose. But you could always do a bigger nose if you want. You could do another triangle or a different shape altogether, but I'm going to do just a little bit of a dot. Now I'm going to dip my paint into my cup of water, my paintbrush, wipe that off, and next I'm going to paint an outline in a much more dramatic color around the outside of my face. So I'm going to use some of this nice bright red here, and I'm going to go in a nice sharp bold line with a lot of this red paint on my brush around the outside of my triangles and my circle of my nose, like this. 1, 2, 3. And if you're finding that your paint is still wet from the first coat, you can always go over it again a second time, because what I notice is that when you do it and the paint is wet still, you'll end up with a hole in your paint or it'll look streaky. But this is why we go with the lightest color on the bottom, is because it's easier to color over that than it is to go with a darker color first and go over it with a lighter color. The darker color will still show through. Okay, so there we go. I've got some red around my pumpkin's eyes. I'm going to do a little bit of red around that button nose that I gave it. And I'm going to quick go around the outside with some of that red on my mouth. And then after I've done the red, I'm going to do this one more time with an even darker, bolder color. Go. Looking good, looking good. Almost done. And of course, don't hesitate to tilt and turn your pumpkin and turn it in different directions so that you can get the best angle. And don't be afraid of getting a little bit messy with this, but you don't want to stick your hand in a place that you just painted, because then the paint will smudge. Okay, so I'm going to put my brush in the water, and now you can see I have some red around my jack-o'-lantern face. Now the last thing that I'm going to do is use the darkest color on that face, and I'm going to use some black paint now and go around the red. So this is going to give it a really dramatic and spooky look, kind of like the eyes are sunken. And this one here, I'm making it a little bit more raggedy towards the outside. And I'm going to actually feather this into the red to make it look almost like a red dark shadow that's pulsing with an eerie light. So I'm going to take my brush and drag it into the red paint with the black paint still on. Give it a real spooky look. And I'm going to do the same on this side, going over that red and dragging it through. So I'm painting just outside of the red, and then with my brush dragging the red paint and the black paint into each other. Of course, you can always put a tiny bit more red paint on your brush if you think it looks too dark, and then drag it together to give it that really spooky look. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my nose. And once you're satisfied with the way that the nose looks, we're going to do the same thing for the mouth. And of course, feel free to add on to your pumpkin as you go. And if you want to give it something else, like maybe a mustache, you absolutely can. In fact, I think I might just do that. I'm going to give mine a mustache. Alrighty, well there we go. Now you can keep going and add things like ears or spots for hair. For hair, what I like to do is take a lot of paint on my brush and go splat, like that, splat. And if you have a lot of paint on your brush as you're going splat, 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 the more paint you have on your brush, the further up that hair will stand once it is dry. So I like to do little spots rather than a single line for my hair. But if you'd rather draw it a different way, you absolutely can. So I'm going to use some blue and some green. And there we go. You could also give your pumpkin some ears that look like the letter C if you'd like. See, another dot inside, but only if you'd like to. You could decorate a pumpkin however you'd like, and I'll look forward to seeing it for Halloween. Why don't you take a picture of it and send it to us for our pumpkin contest? If you send it to falpumpkincontest@gmail.com, that's FAL pumpkin, PUMPKIN, contest, CONTEST, @gmail.com, we can enter it in our pumpkin decorating contest. So I hope you had a good time at our program tonight, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day, everybody, and happy painting. Bye-bye.